Climate-smart agriculture, forestry, and fisheries contributes to the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals. It integrates the three dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental, by jointly addressing food security and climate challenges. It consists of three main pillars: sustainably increasing agricultural production and incomes, adapting and building resilience to climate change, reducing and/or removing greenhouse gases emissions where possible. Simply put, climate-smart agriculture is a collation of best management practices of adaptation, mitigation, and resilience in all spheres of agriculture, with the intent to leave the smallest footprint on the planet. Could climate change affect global food production?
Climate change is already affecting global food production, and it will probably have even more of an impact in years to come. Carbon dioxide, or CO2, a major greenhouse gas, is a primary cause of global warming. Human activity provides a major source of CO2 in our atmosphere by burning fossil fuels. The rate of increase in global warming due to greenhouse gases is very likely unprecedented within the past 10,000 years or more. But plants use carbon dioxide to grow, so shouldn't warmer temperatures and more carbon dioxide be a good thing for agriculture?
If it were just the carbon dioxide going up in the atmosphere, agriculture all the crops would just be smiling and say, great, because high CO2 is good for photosynthesis. So that, in and of itself, it would be good.
Climate has an effect upon agriculture in several ways. One would be, in the case of the far north, you may have a longer growing season. And so areas presently where you can't grow certain crops because it's too cold or the growing season is too short, you might be able to grow these crops there as conditions warm up in those areas.
When we then add in the other effects of climate change, let's first just talk about higher temperatures. Then the story becomes more mixed.
While a warmer climate might mean some new growing regions, our major agricultural areas will likely face losses. Scientists predict that in many areas on Earth there will be more drought, more fires, and warmer temperatures, while a few places may experience cooler temperatures, more rainfall, or more intense flooding.
We do not need to go further to experience more intense flooding. In fact, last year, on Friday, September 13th, Colorado experienced the worst flooding in its history. Society in general, and agriculture in particular, were hardest hit. It is important to understand what climate-smart agriculture is. It is even more important to understand what it may do if we fail to address this grand challenge. What are the implications, particularly on food and nutritional security, locally, regionally, and globally?
One out of every 8 people in the world is hungry and undernourished. Rising global temperatures will make it harder for everyone to have access to enough nutritious food, and those who are already poor and vulnerable will be most affected. The global challenges of hunger, nutrition, and climate justice are closely linked. The right kind of food helps build our immunity to disease and keeps us healthy. Without a balanced and nutritious diet and clean water, children can't develop fully, affecting the rest of their lives and the lives of their children. Climate change makes hunger and undernutrition worse in many different ways. Changes to the global climate can be sudden, like storms, or gradual, like sea level rise. Either way, vulnerable people are put at a greater risk of being hungry and malnourished. For many families, the rains haven't come when expected these last few years. And the hungry season is getting longer. Families struggle to find enough nutritious food. Women, who make up the majority of small-scale farmers, find it even harder to balance childcare, household duties and farming. Droughts, floods and unpredictable weather frequently force poor families to sell their livestock or other valuable goods to get by, leaving them even worse off. With poor harvests and smaller herds, less food is available and food prices are higher. It gets harder for families to afford nutritious food, and these people with even less to spend on education and healthcare. And without enough nutritious food, families go hungry and have less energy to fight diseases and infections such as malaria, cholera and HIV. Everyone has to focus on keeping the family going.
While many families and societies struggle to fully understand the implications of climate change, many are already feeling the grunt.
The leaves are rolled. It means that they don't have water. Instead of 1 meter height, the maize is just about half a meter. This farmer here plants whenever the rains begin. And he knows when the rains begin normally. But now, because of climate change, he cannot tell anymore when the season really begins. So he's still depending on his old knowledge to do his farm. And every time he's getting it wrong. Not because he has done anything wrong, but because something else is happening. And he cannot determine the beginning part of the season correctly anymore.
There is no question that we are facing global challenges, and it will require global solutions. While we continue to understand the complexity of the problem, it is more important to formulate solutions. Just recently, on the margins of the United Nations Climate Summit, a global alliance on climate-smart agriculture was launched in New York City on September 24, 2014.
Climate change affects how much food we're able to produce. And it affects, and how much food we produce actually affects climate change at the same time. Now we see this drought that's hitting in various parts of the world, particularly in Central America. And this alliance is to try to bring capable partners together who have the ability to find solutions. Climate smart agriculture. It's that simple. And the World Bank and the FAO have been working together.
The CSA project involves 5 different pieces. One of them is building an evidence base to look at what are the practices, what are the changes in agricultural systems that will give you adaptation to climate change given the specific kinds of projected changes, but also can give you mitigation co-benefits, so that you're doing one big piece is looking at an analysis of synergies and trade-offs between adaptation, mitigation, food security in agricultural systems. Another big piece is looking at what are the barriers to farmers would face in adopting those practices. Okay, we identify a set of practices we want farmers to adopt, but how come they can't adopt those? And what do we do about that? So we look at local institution development, things like extension, credit. But a major area of work also is looking at risk management, because climate change really changes risk. And risk is something that affects what farmers do on their farms a lot. So a big part of our project is trying to understand how risk changes the barriers farmers face in adopting new practices and how we can help them to overcome that. Another piece of the project then is looking at the policy, a coherent policy and strategic framework that combines the agricultural development, food security and climate change political frameworks And finally, one of the major outputs of the project is to put this all together in an investment proposal so that the countries have the capacity to move ahead with large climate-smart agriculture investments, and that would be funded not only from agricultural sources of finance, but also from climate change sources of finance, these new emerging sources to support both adaptation and mitigation.
Examples of climate-smart agriculture at work? Water harvesting captures runoff for better crops, helping farmers adapt to erratic rainfall in dry areas. On-farm trees protect crops from wind, provide nutrients through their roots and leaves, and are a source of fodder for livestock and firewood for the kitchen. Did you know that agriculture, soil erosion, and deforestation together contribute a third of total greenhouse gas emissions? Well, climate-smart agriculture brings yet another benefit, because healthy farmland captures carbon in vegetation and in the soil as well. If farmers increase carbon in the soil, they can even earn money through carbon credits. The World Bank is piloting this approach in Kenya. So climate-smart agriculture is a triple win. There's more food on the table, there are healthier landscapes that are more resilient to droughts and floods, and at the same time, plants and soil capture more carbon. Many farmers are climate smart already. In Burkina Faso, in China, in Brazil, in India, in Ethiopia, and in South Africa. Climate smart agriculture, it's a path to green growth. So now is the time to take action. You can make agriculture a part of the climate change solution.